Hmm. One class note. Fine. Yeah.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello.
Hi. Morning. Are we just starting?
Yeah, we're just starting. You're just on time. I just came.
Rabbi Plotkin, I'm sorry. Levi is going to call me. I may have to leave abruptly. He's taking apart the sukkah.
Okay,
thank
not a problem. We won't hold it up.
Sorry.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Sorry about that. 2 minutes late.
That's okay.
For everybody here? No. Okay. It was somebody else.
Good morning.
Lost.
Rabbi, while we are waiting, I'd like to thank you and Goldie and all the other people who participated for organizing an outstanding holiday season
Oh, thank you so
and
much.
all the programs. It was just absolutely outstanding and wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helga. I was very excited to see John. Hey, John, how you doing? What a great honor to see you here. Beautiful. Okay, nice Basil and Joy and Paul, Helga and
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Esther.
Hi.
Esther.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Eddie. So,
Thanks,
Bobby
Rabbi.
Joe. No, very nice to see everybody. Okay.
So no Estrock jam this year.
No, if it's an Israeli one, you can't.
Mhm.
If it's Israeli, you'd have to leave it till it. You can smell it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still smells
Yeah.
sometimes wonderful.
Okay, so give me just a second here. You guys can see me okay? It's a little blurry. I don't know. Looks a little blurry.
Yes.
To do this. How does this change things? The CDC has a list of scheduled vaccines.
Yeah. I've been in touch with the Brodies. I will connect to them again. Thanks, Eddie.
What's on that list? Several vaccines that are really powerful to prevent spread, including.
Little tool. Can you see me okay?
Perfectly.
Can you see me? You guys, you can see me?
Perfectly.
Blurry.
Yeah?
Clear.
For some reason, it's not very clear by me, but it's fine. Let's see what's going on. Okay, just give me another minute. Nice to see you, Ivan. Nice to see you. Just give me a second here.
Bye-bye.
Smoke today. Hang in there. Okay. Okay, so we're going to continue the class about the oneness of God, as the unity of God is one of the biggest things of Judaism. As we know that as Jews, the most important thing is Hashem Echad. God is one, right?
Yeah, one more.
That's always a very, very important aspect of the Judaism, is a belief in one God. Abraham, the first Jew, his first novelty, his first teaching to the world was that there's no many gods, but there's one God alone, Hashem Echad. And that was the mission statement of Moshe Rabbeinu to the Jewish people, which we spoke about numerous times. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Here is the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Hashem is one. But we all ask ourselves the important question is, how does that work? How does the oneness of God work? If we know that today's Pasha, it says, just a second, it says that Bereshit bara Elokim es hashamayim ves haaretz. That in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. That in the beginning Hashem created the heavens and earth. So it means that Hashem created something else besides for himself. So the famous question that's asked is, how can we say that there's one God in the world, there's only one Hashem, if we know that there is a world too? Hashem created the world, right? Hashem created the whole world. He created a big world out there. So after he created the world, there's Hashem, and there's also a world. So Hashem isn't alone anymore. He's not one. There really is Hashem. There's a one God, but there also is a world. So many great philosophers over all the years, they dealt with this very important question. How do we believe in a oneness of God? How do we instate the oneness of God if we know that there is a world besides for God? Hashem himself says, in the parasha, it says, he created heavens and earth. So there's many other things besides for God. So Rambam and many others dealt with this very important question. And they said, yes, there is a world. But the only true existence is God. Okay, this is a very important thing. The only true existence is God. Yeah, there are many other things in the world. God created the world. But the world is not a real existence. It's a temporary existence. The only real existence is the existence of God. So therefore, God's unity is not challenged. So when we say that there's only one God, what we mean to say is not that there's nothing else besides for God, but everything else is temporary. It's transient. It's dependent existence. The only independent real existence is the existence of God. So therefore, the unity of God is never challenged by any other creation, because everything else is just a creation. So this is a very important concept and understanding of Hashem, to know that the only real existence is Hashem. Everything else is not a real existence. We know that we say, as the Rambam says, God says Hashem. We say it in davening every day. Hashem lekechem emet. God is true. What does it mean he's true? What does it mean he's real? Emet. We use the word emet. The word for real in Hebrew is emet. Emet is an interesting etymological makeup of the word. The word for truth in Hebrew is made up of 3 Hebrew letters. Aleph, Mem, and Taf. That's emet. Emet is a very important word. So emet, we try to be truthful people. So it's very important. We're emes. Emes. In Yiddish we say emes. In Hebrew we say emet. It's the same word. But what is the word? It's made up of 3 Hebrew letters. And this is where Hebrew is a very interesting way the Hebrew works. Emet, the word of truth, is Aleph, Mem, Taf. What do we know about the letter Aleph in the Hebrew letters? There are 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Which letter is the letter Aleph? Anyone? Aleph is the number 1.
Number 1, yeah.
Aleph, first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. What do we know about the last letter of the word Emet, which is Taf? What do we know about the letter Taf? Taf is which letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Taf? It's the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, right? Aleph, Taf. So like in English, you say from A to Z, right? From A to Z. When you say from A to Z, or in America, we say from A to Z. What does A to Z mean? A to Z means from the beginning
to the end.
to the end. So the word in Hebrew which is the word for truth, is A to Z. Aleph, Mem, Taf. The first letter of the Hebrew word MS is Aleph, number one letter. The last letter of the word Taf of MS is Taf, which is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So it means from the beginning to the end. That's truth. Truth means you're always the same. Where does the letter Mem come in? Mem. What's unique about the letter Mem within the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet?
It's a middle.
The middle, yeah. M stands for middle. M means M, middle, right? M is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, it has nothing to do with middle, but just happens to be that the letter Mem, if you count the letters, so 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So the letter for the exact middle letter of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Mem. So like if you count Aleph to Yud, that's 10 letters. Chaf, Lamed, Mem. So the 13th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Mem. So it's smack in the middle of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's the letter Mem. So you have Aleph is the first letter, Mem is the middle letter, and Taf is the last letter. So when we say Hashem is the same, he's unchanging, he's always the same. Nothing changes, he's always around. He's at the beginning, Aleph, he's at the Mem, and he's at the Taf. You know, some people are like strong starters. You know, people in life, you have a lot of people, they're good starters. They're good at starting off things. They're very exciting people. They start off things. But then goodbye, they phase away. They disappear from the scene. Why? Because they're just good starters. They don't hang out afterwards. Then you have some people that they wake up at the end. They're good finishers. They're good clinchers. You know, in sports, you have a clincher, a person they bring into the game. He's the person who knows how to win a game, right? At the end, they're good. At the end of the game, they're good. Some people are very good at the end. They're the tough people, soft people. The last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, they're the Zeds people. Right? So that's very special people because they hang out at the end. They're the tough, soft people. Emet. Right? So that's good. Some people are starters, some people, but then there's another trick, is to be in the middle too. Now, some people are good to start, some people are good to end, but in the middle they disappear. You know, they're not consistent people. So God is consistent. He's always around. He was, he is, and he will be. Like we say in the davening, Haya, Hoveh, V'yeh. He was, he is, and he will be. In fact, the name of God, the name that we know as the ineffable name of God, the name that you're not allowed to pronounce of Hashem, is the name Yud, and then a Hey, and then a Vav and a Hey. That's the name that you see in the Torah. We don't see it really, because if you don't read the Torah, you don't see it. The name of God is spelled Yud and Hey and a Vav and a Hey. Where does that name come from? It's a strange name. In some of the other religions, they use the name Jeho and Va, right? That's the way they pronounce it. So you're not allowed to say the name, otherwise you have to stone me, throw me out of this class. I can't say the name, but the name Yud, Hey, and a Vav and a Hey, that's the name of God. Where does that name come from? It's a strange name, but it really it's an etymological makeup of the three tenses. He was, he is, and he will be. That's what God is, right? So the word in Hebrew for he was Haya. The word that he is Hoveh, he is. And Yihiyeh means he will be. So if you take those three words, the three tenses, and you sort of mesh them together, you get Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. It has, if you look at it carefully, you'll see there's Yihiyeh, Haya, Hoveh, and Yihiyeh all in one word. He was, he is, and will be. Right? All together in one word. That's what God is. God is Emes. Emes means he was, he is, and he will be.
And he will be.
So this is very important to know that every other existence in this world is temporary. And so it could be a very strong existence. The world, you look at it, it's powerful existence, right? But we all know the world had a beginning. Even science, they say the Big Bang. What does the Big Bang mean? The Big Bang means that the world had a start. Right? And if something had a start, it has to have a finish point. At some point, it will not exist anymore. Anything philosophical, anything has a starting point, can't go on forever. Although we do have a math is a thing called a ray or whatever, something like that. There's a beginning point, there's an end point, but it's a falsehood. Something that has a beginning will have an end. So the world that we live in, since it was created, will not be forever. So something that has a beginning and an end is not real. It's a beautiful existence, a beautiful world. It's a great world. But because it doesn't have permanence, it's not real. And because it's not real, it doesn't really challenge God's oneness. Because it's a creation. And God is the creator. So God was, he is, and he will be forever. He always existed. No, that's the definition of a God. Whereas creation, something was created and will not be forever. It's a hard concept, but it explains the oneness. So when we say Hashem Echad, what we mean to say is Hashem Emet is the only true existence. So even though there are other things besides for God in this world, his creations, but they're not real. He's the only real, true existence. Follow what I'm saying? So in the Talmud it says that there are some rivers that dry up once in 7 years. They're called, in Hebrew, they're called Naharot HaMechazvin, the lying rivers. They're called the lying rivers, the false rivers. False river. Why? Because very powerful rivers, but they dry up every 7 years or something. Or something which doesn't exist forever is called it's not real. Now on Shabbos, the halacha is you're not allowed to cut, you're not allowed to harvest on Shabbos. It's part of one of the works of Shabbos, harvesting. But it says if the guy is a magician and he makes believe that he's harvesting, he makes believe that he's cutting the cucumbers off the ground. Those days, the olden days, that's how magicians work. They would try to harvest. When it wasn't harvested, they'd pluck out but it was just an image. It wasn't real. So that's okay on Shabbos, because Shabbos you have to do something that's real. You have to pull out the cucumber from the ground. But if it's just a magical illusionary thing, it's not real. Something that's an illusion is not real. So a magician or an illusionist, we call them illusionists, right? They're not doing real stuff. God is real. He's the real thing. Why is he real? Because he always was, he always is, and he always will be.
But we are in his image, so we are part of
So when we speak about God's unity, God's oneness, and we say that Hashem is the only one existence, you say, hold on, I see a world out there. I see other things besides for God. God says, yeah, you see other things, but all those things are not the only real thing is God. So God still remains unchallenged as a singular entity, the only real existence, because no other existence is for real. They're all temporary, illusionary existences. You can't say the world is illusionary because God said he created the world, but it's not real because it doesn't live on forever. So that's the first explanation. So the famous Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, Maimer Ha'umnam Tafresh Mem Gimel, 1883. The Rebbe Rashab said this Maimer, and he tried to explain the unity of God. So the first explanation he gave was that the only real existence is the existence of God, and the world is not such a real existence because it doesn't exist forever. So something that's temporary can't stand up to something which is permanent, which is God. Big philosophical Maimer. And then the Rebbe Rashab went into the Rebbe Shalom David Ber in the year 1883. He said this Maimer, and the second explanation he gave was as follows. So I gave you the first explanation. The first explanation is God is permanent. He was, he is, he will be. And the world is temporary. So God is true and the world is not true. It's a heavy mimer. So the second concept in this mimer, to explain the unity of God, is that the Rambam touches on this point too, is that the difference between God and the world is that God is an independent existence, whereas the world is dependent on God. So even though the world exists, and even if it exists for a very long time, it's not a true existence because it's a dependent existence, as opposed to God, who is an independent existence. What does that mean? That means like this. Even though we know God created the world many, many years ago, so maybe God just left the world and he let the world live on its own, and now the world is also an independent existence. So Chassidus explains, no, it's not the case. We say every day in davening, HaMechadesh B'Tuvei. God renews his work of creation every single day. That some people think that God maybe created the world a long time ago, and then he went to sleep. He went away, and he's doing his own thing. And now he has no connection to the world as it is. He created he made the Big Bang, and then he went away.
Yeah.
Let the world now go on its own. The evolutionary process continue, and now he has nothing to do with it. Chassidus explains, no, that's impossible. By definition, God needs to constantly not just create the world, but recreate the world. That's why every day in our prayers we say the Shema, but we also speak about the Exodus from Egypt. Very important part of Judaism. Why is the Exodus from Egypt such an important thing? We keep on saying again and again, remembering the Exodus to remind us not only does God create the world, but he also is an active God. He's always doing miracles. He's always involved. He's involved in creation. He's constantly involved in the process of creation as it is today. So the world as it is today is being monitored, directed, and orchestrated by God. So one thing is to believe God, some people believe God created the world, but after that, after so many years, he's a little old, senile, nothing to do with the world anymore. He's like, okay, let it go on its own. And then we're much more comfortable in a way, because then we understand why there was a Holocaust, why all these things, because God's not paying attention anymore. But Jews, we have a bigger problem, because our belief is that not only did God create the world, but he needs to recreate the world. Why is that? Because our belief is that the world is like, it's against the nature of existence that we are here today. In other words, the Big Bang and the world to come out of nothing. The world was in a state of nothingness before, and God created the world from nothing into something. He constantly has to recreate it. That's what we say, HaMechadesh B'Tuvei. He's constantly renewing the works of creation. I give you a little example of that. It's almost like when you go to a movie, you watch a beautiful movie on the screen, right? It's being projected from a projector in the movie room, whatever, in the controls room, being projected onto the big TV screen, right? If you want to go for 1 second inside the projector, somebody's watching over there a beautiful movie, if it's Gone with the Wind or whatever, right? And you're somewhere, I don't know where you're in Barcelona, or you're in, I don't know where you are over there in the middle of Casablanca. They watch a great movie, the whole world, it looks like that's the world, right? But if somebody goes into the controls room and shuts off the projector, the whole thing stops to exist. There's no Casablanca, there's no Barcelona, there's no nothing on the projector, there's nothing going on. The Three Stooges are gone, the Abbott and Costello is gone. The Fonz is gone. Everybody's gone. Oh, whatever you're watching over there, it's all disappeared. Lady Gaga's gone. Whatever. I don't know what you're watching over there. Everything on the screen is gone because somebody went inside the room and shut it off. Why is that? What happened? The whole world that you were just watching, that's our belief. The belief is that God is projecting the world. And he's constantly keeps on showing that movie. As long as he shows the movie, as long as he's recreating, the world is existing. The moment he stops to create it, it doesn't exist. So, talking about dependent creation, independent creation. Today we're giving a real Kabbalah class over here. But the concept is that the oneness of God is real. For the first reason we said was that God is permanent and the world is temporary. That was the first explanation. Second explanation I just gave you was that God is independent existence. No, God and the existence of God, he doesn't depend on anybody else. He exists because he exists. He is because he is. Right? Whereas the world was created by God and continuously recreated by God. So we are, even if we want to be forever, we are always an independent existence. So when we say God is one, we mean to say God is the only independent existence. There might be lots of other things going on, lots of shows, but all those shows are dependent on the control room. And the moment God stops the controls, the whole world will stop to exist. So we can still comfortably say God is one. So this is all part of this Maimer HaOmnam I told you from 1883. Tafresh Mem Gimel. L'Rebbe Rashav. Trying to explain Shema Yisrael, that God is one. You hear, John? You hear what we're talking about, John? You're following me? You're good? Okay. I just want to make sure you're getting it. And then there is a third explanation. We're going to conclude the class with the third explanation. I'm losing Basil over there. Basil, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. The third explanation that's given, and this is also a very deep part of the Maimer, is like the light of the sun in the sun. So we have the sun, which is the source of light. So we can always think of God as that, like he's the source of the light of the world. The world is like the light which comes from God. So the sun projects light outside of the sun. The creator of the light, right, is the sun. And the light, when it comes out of the sun, you look at the light in this world, you don't always see the sun. You know, probably it comes from the sun. It comes from the source of light. But the light becomes an existence on its own when it's outside of the sun. So you have the creator, which is like the sun, and the light of the sun, which is parallel to the world, which is coming from God. When do we say that the light is a separate existence? Is when it's outside of the sun. But we can be sure that the light of the sun existed before it came out of the sun. While it was in the sun, it was also light, right? And the sun is so radiant that the light overflowed and it came into the world. So we have light in this world as we know it. But this light that comes here started out within the sun, it's the body of the sun itself. Now, nobody's going to call that light light when it's in the sun. When it's in the sun, everyone will call it the sun, because it's part of the body of the sun. Even though there are rays, billions of rays of light within the sun, no one is going to identify those rays as light. They're just going to call it the sun. Because when you're in your source, you're not identified as a separate thing. So for instance, a fetus, when it's in its mother's womb, nobody gives the fetus a name yet. It's a limb of the mother. It's part of the mother. So if the mother's name, let's say, is Rachel, so the fetus is still Rachel, even though the fetus is already partially developed, already a child, it's about to come into the world. Nobody will identify the fetus as a separate part of the mother. It is the mother. And that's an important question with the whole abortion issue. I'm not going to go into that, but what is the fetus when it's still part of the mother? Like the light of the sun, when it's in the sun, it's not, nobody will call it light. They only call it light when it comes into the world. When it's in the sun, it's the sun, it's the source of light. It's part of the source. So when you are absorbed in your source of existence, you are not a separate entity. You are part of the deeper existence, which is your source. So we don't see God in this world. God, in his infinite wisdom, figured out a way to hide himself so that we can have free choice and make our own choices and decisions in life. So God is in a constant state of concealment. But if you want to reveal God for one moment, where is God? Every child knows God. Hashem is everywhere. So we never really left the sun. We never really left our mother. We never really left our creator. We are still part and within our creator. How did we become creation? That's really in our imagination, in our world. God was able to conceal himself so that we should have free choice and we should think we're on our own. But if for one moment we want to reveal the real reality of what's going on, we would see God everywhere. The moment we want to see God everywhere, we would realize that we are just a part of a greater existence. We are not, we never even left the fetus. We never even left the sun. We never left our source. So we are still within God. So if we are within God, we are not a separate thing of God. We are part of that greater God existence. And so that's a third explanation to explain that we are not a challenge to the oneness of God because we are still within God himself. So I gave you three explanations. One was that we are temporary and God is permanent. That's why he's one. Second explanation was we are dependent and God is independent. Number three is that we are in fact within God. So we are within the creator, within the fetus state. So therefore we can never be considered a separate entity. So we don't challenge the oneness of God. So after we learned this mimer, we all know that truly Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one. And we understand the concept of the oneness of God, which is that although it says in creation, it says in the beginning, God created the world, but that's not a challenge to the oneness of Hashem. Yes, the world has a very important purpose. In the world, we have a lot to accomplish in this life, and we have a lot to accomplish in this world, a lot of choices to make. But at the end of the day, the only real existence, the only emes is Hashem, because he is permanent, he is dependent, independent, and he is the source of all existence, which we are within that existence, right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the class today. Wish you all a good,
Thank you very much.
good Shabbos Bereshis. The Shabbos we read the Beresh, Parshas Bereshis. Beginning, he created heavens and earth. The Shabbos of Genesis, and we will continue in Mitzvah Shem, the Kabbalah of Genesis. Anyone have any questions on what we just said?
I personally, Rabbi, think that this particular lesson needs much more studies or understanding, because at the beginning, when you said that God is forever and we are not forever, but I felt like we are part of the Hashem.
Oh.
So how come we cannot be? So I'm so glad that you mentioned the third option.
Right. Well, there's two parts of us. There's the physical part of us, that's temporary, dust to dust, right? There's a soul, which is the divine part, so that's God, so that's forever, right? But that's when we identify ourselves, it's the composite of soul and body. That's our identity down here, right? So that part of us is temporary. But yes, there's a part of us also that's infinite and continues forever, but that's God. So that's not, it's definitely not a contradiction to the existence of God.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Rabbi.
Thank you
Shabbat
so
shalom.
much. That
Thank
was
you.
very, very well explained.
Thank you so much, for sure.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you as
Great
always.
Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos,
Thank
everybody.
you. All the best. Bye-bye.
You, Rabbi Plotkin.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom.